Hi, it's Matt from Table Flip Games, and in this video we're going to look at Mayer's primitives and how we can model from that. So let's get started. So I want to show you the different primitives that we could use, as well as just showing you how to change the scale of them and that sort of stuff. So there's a couple of things. So the first primitive is this one, which is a cube. So if I just press delete on this one and bring this in, and I'm just going to scale this up to 50 so I can see it. I'm going to change where the pivot is. So how I did that then was I selected that top value, hold shift and then left click, and then typed in 50, pressed enter, and it thingy. And then what I'm going to do with this is just change where the pivot is. So D and then V and then D again. And I'm going to hold X to snap it to the grid. So this is a cube, and from this you can pretty much make anything. The method that I'm going to show you is box modeling. I might show you some sub-D modeling as well for high poly modeling, but this is mainly what you're going to be doing. Okay. If I want to duplicate this, I press Ctrl D, and that duplicates it. And I'm holding X to snap it to the grid. And yeah, and if I select multiple versions of this and press Ctrl D X, I can start to make multiple versions of this box, and you can see inside the outliner it's here. Now this is starting to get messy, so what I want to do is group this. So if I select the top one and hold shift left click, it's going to select all of them, and if I press Ctrl G, it's going to group them. So boxes. Now because it's in this group, this is going to have its own pivot, so I could actually center with the group selected, and now it will be at the center. But then if I select the boxes, individual, they keep their own pivots information. But as a whole pivot, as a whole group, I can move it here, or I can center it, but it won't affect the individual pivots. So I'm just going to delete these. So the next shape, I'm just going to rename this to shapes and call this box. Double click on that to make it. I'm just going to move this off to the side. So the next thing we're going to make is a sphere. Again, I'm going to scale this up to 50. Now I'm going to keep that here on an X anyway. I'm just going to put this in, and now middle mouse button allows you to drag other objects inside of these groups. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So that's a sphere. You notice as well you have lots of geometry, so it's gone from being 12 tries and the sphere is 760 tries. So these are quite expensive and I don't tend to use them much, but we can change the subdivisions. So if we wanted to, we could change to say 6, but the problem with that is if I turn this wireframe off, is you can start to see the geometry. So if this was supposed to be an eyeball, that's not good. Okay, now we could fake it, or we can add more divisions in. But again, you can still see the geometry. So if I put 20, notice that it's a lot more rounder. Now there is a way to fake this. So if I've done this down to 12, I can go into mesh display and go soften edge. Like I said, all the tools can be found here. Now when I start to talk a bit more about the actual tools and what we're going to use to build the desk, I will actually use something called a marking menu, where I'm holding shift right mouse button and it gives me all these tools. And it's dependent on your edge on your selection mode, not your edge selection, but this is on your selection mode. And at the moment, because I'm in edges, it gives me this option to do soften edge. There you go. So if you notice that it softened the normals, so it gives the illusion that this soft, it's smooth, but in fact it's still quite low in comparison. Now the only problem with this is, I think if I try and do this now, no, it's worked. Cool. So I can, as long as I haven't deleted the history, I can normally change this. Once I delete the history, I can't go back. Cylinders is another primitive we can use. And again, I tend to use this for pipes because it's a cylinder, surprisingly. And I'm just going to put the pivot here. So you'll find that a lot of the time, hard surface is normally in the corners. And if it's, say, a character, you tend to put the pivot at the bottom. I'll show you character in a minute. But yeah, that's the cylinder primitive again, and I can change how many subdivisions there is. I can change, so I just went edge, select, hold shift, soften, harden edges. You can see that it'll soften it, and I'm not using too many polygons, because if once I start extruding all this objects, you start to see the poly count going up and up when you start to add more detail in it. We've also got different view modes, so if you accidentally press 1, sorry, wait a minute, if you accidentally press 3 or 2, don't worry, you haven't screwed up your model. You just need to press 1 again and it will go back into this normal view. 4 gives you wireframe, 5 on the keyboard gives you shaded, 7 is lit, but you'll never use this. The only time I use this is to check silhouettes out, to see if the silhouette's too harsh and that sort of stuff. So if I just go back to 5, that will be default shade, and 6 will mean if you've got any textures applied to this, you'll be able to see them. So if you do accidentally press any of the ones on the keyboard, then don't worry, like any of the numbers, just hit 1 and it will go back to normal. That being said, there's a lot of times when I find students just press buttons when they panic. Try not to do that, because you'll probably delete something or change your tool. So for example, some students always press B, which is soft selection tool. So if can you see how it's now a different color? You hit B again, that will get rid of it. Okay. Cap locks as well is another one. Just try and be careful. If it all goes to pot, you can reset Maya's preferences. You don't have to reinstall. You can just delete the preferences by going into the I'll show you. Got to remember where I save this now. So it'll be Documents Maya, whatever version you're using. I'm using 2018, and then you just delete this preference folder and it will reset a lot of things. The other ones is a cone, and I've just pressed R on the keyboard to scale that. A torus, a plane, and with the plane you can only see it from one side. You'll notice that it's black on the other side because this is the only side that's rendered, because it is just a flat object. I've never seen this in my life. Okay, I've been using Maya for a long time. I didn't even know this existed. But yeah, get rid of that. So these are the different primitives that you can use inside of Maya. The last two, these two, I don't use. We can get rid of those. This, I don't tend to use it, but it's there. It's sphere, kind of self-explanatory. But these are the main ones I use, which is a cube, cylinder, and plane. And like I said, the problem with this is it comes standard as comes standard as this grid. You don't want it, you can just press 1 and then 1, and there you go. Very good for glass and that sort of stuff. Okay. In the next video, we're going to look at some of Maya's tools and how we can actually use them to create the desk. So I'll see you next week. If you like this video and want to see more, we have a range of videos on our YouTube channel covering topics from programming to art, and eventually we'll have animation tutorials on this site. If you'd like to support us, you can subscribe and like. And if you want to have early access to these videos, have a say on what topics are covered, and also have access to the source code and art assets from this series and other series, please visit our Patreon. The link is in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week with a new video.